Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Zoom grid world. I'm just going to wait for everybody's screens to load up here.
I can't see who's talking. Can you raise your hand if you're the one talking?
It's me. I'm talking.
Oh, there you
over
are.
here.
I see you.
Yes.
I see your name.
I'm the talker. I'm just waiting for folks to kind of load up here.
I can see my screen, but I can't seem to get my camera. Oh, is that it?
Well, if you're just coming into the meeting and you don't see your video going, just look down at the bottom menu bar and there should be a video control. Yeah, you can have your video on or off. You can mute yourself or unmute yourself. I'm gonna get started. I think we're gonna keep everybody on mute just for the moment so that we don't have too much interference with noise coming from everyone's homes. I'm so excited to see all of you here on the Zoom grid. I see folks from San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York. This is very exciting. My name is Asaye FitzGerald, and I am the director for Poets and Writers California office and our Readings and Workshops West program. I'm here today with my colleague, Dan Tran Kong Huen. She is our Readings and Workshops McCrindle Foundation Fellow for this year, and she is going to be helping me out today with the meeting, fielding your questions and making sure everything goes smoothly. So thank you, Dan Tran. And we also have some other Poets and Writers staff members. If you can see her name in her little screen window, it's Bonnie Rose Marcus. She is our Readings and Workshops Director in New York. Thank you for being here, Bonnie. And we have Elliot Figman, our Executive Director, tuning in from New York. Thanks for coming, Elliot. And then we have Ricardo Hernandez, who helps with the program in New York as well. Thank you so much, Ricardo, for being here. So just a couple of little Zoom tech tips. You can open the chat window at the bottom of your screen. There should be a control for chat. If you want to submit any questions that you have for us for the Q&A period, if you would like to put in a resource, like a link to something that you found helpful, or make suggestions, that's the place to do it in the chat window. And also there is a participants window. If you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand in that area. There should be a control that says raise hand and lower hand. And if that doesn't work, raise your hand on the screen and we'll do our best to call on you if you have a question. I can't see everybody in the meeting because we have kind of a lot of people, but we'll do our best to try to get everybody's questions answered in the time that we have. So again, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to give sort of a brief background about our Readings and Workshops NAEA grants program, which we're going to be talking about today. As many of you know, some of you have received funding through our program, either as an organization or as a writer. We fund live events in-person readings and creative writing workshops. We've been doing this for 50 years in New York and 30 years in California. And it's been wonderful. And now we find that we can't hold live in-person events. So Poets and Writers has decided to temporarily adjust our guidelines so that we can fund virtual live events. So now we are supporting virtual readings and virtual writing workshops during this period of time, because we know that writers really need all the help they can get. It's a difficult time for a lot of people, I think, and Poets and Writers really wants to be able to continue to support writers and the community as best as we can. So I'm going to go over those guidelines with you, and I have a screen share to help me with that. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this will work. Bear with me. All right. So can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So these are our virtual live event guidelines. So this just repeats what I said, which is that we are responding to the restrictions on public gatherings by temporarily making mini grants to support virtual live literary events. For those of you who've applied in the past, I can tell you that the application is exactly the same as it's always been. Nothing has changed there. All of our other guidelines, or most of our other guidelines, are still in place. A sponsor still needs to apply for the writer. Although writers can initiate events with the sponsor, but there has to be somebody who applies on behalf of the writer. So the first guideline is that virtual readings should be live streamed through an audio video platform, which is open to the public. So that would be something like Zoom or Facebook Live or Instagram Live. If possible, we encourage sponsors to record the event and make it available to the public afterwards. It's not required, but it's a nice thing to do if you can. Virtual readings must have both live audio and video components. So we don't offer funding for podcasts or radio broadcasts. Okay, so for virtual writing workshops, they must include real-time online instruction of workshop attendees by a live facilitator, and can be open or closed to the public, dependent on workshop type, and that is certainly up to the writer and the organization who are collaborating on the event. The workshops must have live audio or video components. So for example, we know some folks who are doing their creative writing workshops through Zoom. Some folks are doing them using a conference call setup. So the workshops just have to be done live, and they would potentially qualify. So number 3, when completing the mini grant application, the event site should be listed as the sponsoring organization's mailing address. So this is just for folks who are going to be filling out the application, so that you know when you come to that page where it asks where is the event taking place, that you can just put your organization name. I just want to remind you all to keep your muted so that we don't get too much background noise. Thank you. Okay, so the 4th guideline is that we will consider virtual events that charge a fee, but we'll prioritize applications for events that are free or low cost, especially right now during these times. Those will definitely be given priority. Number 5, if the request is approved, payment will be mailed to the writer approximately 2 weeks after the event. So in the past, we would mail the checks to the sponsor to give to the writer at the event. But because we're all working remotely, we've had to make some adjustments, and so the checks will be mailed after the event, about 2 weeks after, and they'll go directly to the writer. Reporting will be handled as usual. Event organizers and writers are asked to complete brief reports to let us know how the event went, how many participated, and so on. So with virtual events, there are ways to track, how many people were watching, that kind of thing. So if you're able to track that information and include it in your reports, we really appreciate it. As always, event organizers are responsible for ensuring that all publicity materials carry the appropriate credit lines and logos, and for uploading copies of these materials with their report. So you can find our credit lines and logos on our website on pw.org. And if you have publicity for your events, we appreciate getting copies of that when you submit your reports. Happily, for the time being, I think a lot of people will like this one, we will not require sponsoring organizations to match our portion of a writer's fee. So even though the match has always been pretty flexible, right now we're just not going to require it at all. So it'll make it easier for folks to apply. Although we will support virtual events, which can take place obviously anywhere, the sponsoring organization that's applying for the event must still be located in one of our readings and workshops states or cities. That's California, New York State, and Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, Houston, Seattle, New Orleans, Tucson, and Washington, D.C. We have also shortened our application deadline. Usually we like to receive applications about 6 to 8 weeks in advance of the event date. Now we're looking at applications about 4 weeks in advance of the event date. And if you're a few days shy of that, just reach out to us by email or phone to check in about applying. We're trying to be as flexible as we can. We encourage you to list your events on our free online literary events calendar. We have made some adjustments to the calendar so that virtual events can now be listed. You can include the link and all the information about the event, and it's free. All you have to do is register on pw.org, and then you can add events to the calendar. And lastly, if you have any questions after the meeting about the guidelines and whether your event qualifies, you can contact us. My number is here. You have my email address. And you can also just email rw-west@pw.org and it'll reach me as well. Great. So those are the new guidelines. And I just wanted to check in and see what questions folks might be having about these. Let's see, going down the list here. Will you be sharing the recording of this meeting? Yes, we will be sharing the recording of the meeting. And I have another question from Marty. Can the event be a series of workshops? Yes, it can. We fund many workshop series. The grants for workshops are anywhere from $50 to $500 depending on how many sessions the workshops are covering. Okay. Let's see here. Nancy Wu has a question. If our sponsoring organization is in California, but our feature poets are in other states, is it okay? Yes, that's okay. We fund plenty of out-of-state writers. Okay. Another one from Margot. I'd like to do a virtual reading that includes recorded poems of people who were incarcerated when I made recordings. Margot, you could potentially be the funded writer, but I don't think we could fund any of the other readers since they would be pre-recorded. Okay, and now I think I'll take your questions visually. If anybody would like to raise a hand, I'll do my best to try to catch you on the fly. Or you can just unmute yourself and...
Jamie, there are a couple more questions in the chat actually that just
Oh,
came.
there are. I'm
They're-
sorry,
they're-
I kind of missed them.
No, it's fine.
Could you maybe read them out to me?
So, so Sherry Anderson's asking, are you allowing less experienced writers?
Well, we do have certain qualifications that writers need to meet, and it's usually pretty easy for most writers to qualify. You just have to have at least one publication credit in the genre in which your event falls into, so poetry, fiction, or creative nonfiction. So as long as the writer has been published.
Okay, so a publication would qualify, not so much a previous reading or a previous workshop would not have to be involved. A publication would be enough.
Yes, so
Okay.
publication would be sufficient. If the writer is a spoken word artist, we do count featured performances as a qualifying detail.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's also another question from Alice. Can the writers be international?
Yes, the writers can be from other countries. Are there any other questions? Margot, yes.
If it was I'm sorry, I might have missed it because I was typing a question. So if a group of 5 writers were going to do the reading, they would each get funding. So would you apply as a 1 event or 5 event? I might have missed about how much the funding is for readings.
If it's a group reading, an organization would have to apply for each writer separately, even if it's same reading.
And did you talk about how much the funding is?
Well, our grants are about $50 to $350 for a reading. However, because funding is limited, if there are multiple writers, usually the grants end up being a little bit smaller. So anywhere from 50 to, I mean, it really just depends on how much money we have left in the fiscal year. So for instance, right now, we're nearing the end of our fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. So we have a little bit less money at this point. So our grants might be a little bit smaller. Sally, I see your hand raised.
I wrote this question to you too, but I'm just going to ask it because I guess you haven't seen it. So we got funded by you, thank you very much, for, it's called the Gold Rush Writers Conference. And due to COVID-19, I had to postpone it from when we were scheduled the first week of May to October of 2020. My question to you is, if I have to move it to a virtual conference, given the time frame, does that money still hold for the very for the grant that we already got, or what do you suggest?
We will honor grants that we have already made will be honored, whether the events take place in person or virtually.
So I don't have to make any changes unless we have a replacement of a writer that was funded, something like that.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Jamie, I think he has a question.
Who has a question? I'm sorry.
Nancy Wu.
Nancy Wu. Go
All right.
ahead, Nancy.
Oh, I was going to ask the same thing that Margot asked about how to apply. Yeah, so it's one sponsoring organization, a separate application for each writer, even if it's the same event. And I guess follow up, if I have a series of readings I've already started, would I apply for like one reading at a time, or would I be like, hey, we've got 3 readings over the next 3 months, or like, is it kind of individual based, I guess?
Yeah, so if you have a reading series, I think the best thing would be for you to check in with me and just let me know about how many writers you are wishing to apply for, how often your series is, because that gives me a good idea of what we can actually do for the series. We have a few reading series that we fund. Because some of them are so frequent, we can't fund every writer. So we work with the sponsor to sort of figure out what the best plan is for when they apply. So just let me know, and we can talk about it together.
Thank you.
Quentin has a question.
Yeah, thanks for this, Jamie. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
I was just curious. So the fiscal year is ending June 30th. Is the funding going to be more or less the same for the next fiscal year? And are we allowed to apply for that period? Is the money coming out of this year's, or do we have to wait to apply for later in the summer or fall?
Well, we haven't put together our budget yet for the next fiscal year, as far as I know, but we are always accepting applications. So if you have things that are taking place in at July 1st or later, you can certainly apply. Hopefully, with our funders and our support for our program, we'll be able to continue to make grants. But until our budget is finalized, I won't know exactly how much.
Thank you.
Sure, but please do apply. Any other questions? Okay, Marty, I see you. You have to unmute yourself.
My question is a long one. We've had to cancel our live reading series called Teachers Write, Writers Teach because of COVID. But the Bay Area Writing Project, which has many teachers involved in it, and many of whom are also writers, we have a digital publication called Digital Paper, where they are able to publish quarterly. So Judy Bibelor and I are trying to coordinate so that I would like to offer some workshops to teacher consultants in the writing project as a way of encouraging them to submit to Digital Paper. And then Mark Zucker, who is now the editor of Digital Paper, and I want to do a large virtual summer solstice reading because that's when that comes out 4 times a year, 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes. So would we apply for 2 grants, one for workshops and one for the reading that could grow out of those workshops, or what would you suggest?
The application allows the organizer or the project director to apply for multiple sessions. So those could be multiple workshop sessions and a reading that culminates in a reading.
Okay.
So that can all be done in one application.
Okay, Thank you. It was a long, big question. I'm just putting it together in my head today, so that's why.
Sherry, did you have a question?
I do have another question, and I'm going to take Margot's compliment and add mine. You have funded us in the past, and we appreciate it very much. I do have a question about the report that you send in on submittable. I printed it out while it was blank so I could look at what information I needed. Once I filled it out, I can no longer get down to the signature, and it won't let me submit it without a signature. So I'm in kind of a catch-22. Here's my report with pictures and publicity, but I can't send it to you. So
Oh no.
I don't know. That's probably not your above your pay grade, but I would like
I'll have
to know what to do about it. It's been sitting there since like February.
I'll have to get back to you about that. It's a bug. It's a little glitch.
Bug.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so Dan Tran, do you think we got all the questions in the chat? Anybody else?
There is one from Margot.
Oh, Margot, yes.
Yeah, you know, I was wondering because we would record the reading and then make it available. Do we have to get the writers to sign a permissions form?
You mean the reading that you're planning on doing?
Yeah. I mean, not what I already have permissions for the recordings that I have.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about like if we do a Zoom event and then we record it and then we make it accessible to a wider audience. Do we have to get permissions from the other writers?
I believe you should have their permission, yes. One thing that in next week's town hall meeting, we're going to have a guest talking about doing live virtual readings. And one of the things that he mentioned to me was that some writers might not want their Zoom reading to be made available after the fact, just because of quality issues, that kind of thing. So it's always, important that you have an agreement with your writers about what's going to happen with the event, whether it be just a one-time broadcast or if it's going to live on after.
Do you use any permissions forms? Do you have any templates for that? Or
I mean, I have like a video release kind of thing that I've used for events, but they're pretty standard. I think you can probably just kind of Google one, but I'd be happy to share mine with you later if you email me.
Okay.
And Jamie, we have a question from Genevieve. Do you have any suggestions for real-time transcription services for online/Zoom readings?
Oh my goodness. That is a good question. I was actually trying to do some research on that the other day, and I went to the Zoom website and they have information about how to pair transcription services with your Zoom webinars or video conferencing, but it's really techy. It's like a lot of tech speak that I just couldn't get through. So I know that there's stuff out there. You have to use some third-party software, and you have to sync it up with Zoom, but I've never done it. So that's the best I can offer, Genevieve. Sure. Okay, so I mean, if there are any other questions about the guidelines, feel free to just kind of chime in. But I also wanted to make sure that we have some time to do some community sharing about the challenges that you might be facing, the things that are working for you during this weird period of time where we're all trying to make things happen from home and trying to adjust to all the tiny little screens. So I would love to hear from any of you if you have suggestions, things that you've discovered, if you had successes, if you've had, you know, troubles with events and how you dealt with that. So I'm opening it up to the group. Yes, Sherry.
Now, we had our event in January, and we hired a videographer to come and film it. So we would have films of our speakers. We had 6, and he ran. Let's see, how was it? He said his SIM card got full, and he had to leave and go down to some store and buy another one and come back. So he ended up just getting pieces and parts of all 6 of he only actually got about 3 of our speakers, and we wanted it for our website. So I think anyone who's thinking of having your event filmed, you know, make it clear to the videographer he has to come prepared. So you don't end up with just parts and pieces of the speakers.
Yes, yes. Yeah, Nancy, yes.
Hi. I've done a virtual reading in April. Marcus was at our first initial one. What's up, Marcus? And we've had a great time, so I just wanted to share a little bit. We did it in April. We had 2 featured poets and an open mic, and we had people sign up on Zoom, and I just wanted to speak to Margot's question about permissions. So if you're having people sign up on Zoom, you can have a little checkbox where you say, you know, your copy about, I give permission to the organizers to record the event and use it and share it publicly. So in order to sign up, they have to check that box. And it's been a lot of fun. It's just a couple of things that I have learned. One thing when you're doing Zoom, if you're the host, so I'm the host, it's so weird to be looking at your screen, but try and look at the actual camera rather than like your eyes want to go down and look at the boxes. So that's just one thing I've learned as a host. Getting people there early for your event is really key if you want to start on time. I tell people to come 15 or 30 minutes early, and then me and the host, we, you know, check in, we stream live on Facebook. And here's a little glitch we had the other day is that when you're streaming live on Facebook, make sure, okay, so we created our own Facebook page for the event. It's called Pink Noise Virtual Poetry. And it's very easy to accidentally start streaming on your own personal page. So keep that in mind. Oopsies. We actually did the thing where we had to stop in the middle of a reading. I had to be like, I'm so sorry. Can we just pause? And then we had to switch over, and then we started streaming on the right Facebook page, because you tell people to log into Facebook and watch at a certain time. And then it was, yeah, that was just a tech glitch. But as we're all going through this, my attitude is everything is an experiment. So we do our best, and everybody kind of gets that, you know, as we're going through this like weird tech transition. I also do a writing workshop every morning. So for starting in April, for 30-30, I get people on at 8 a.m. and I give a prompt, we do a grounding meditation, I do a prompt, we have 40 minutes of silent writing, and then whoever wants to share afterwards can share. We do that every day, and let me just say, it has been amazing. Like, so good for everybody's mental health, emotional health, like getting it out right in the morning. And I don't know, I would just encourage anyone, like I've just been doing it and it's working out really well. So I don't know if anyone is brainstorming stuff. I would just, you know, say, just do it and see how, just like go with it, see how it goes. People are really responding well to things that I've been doing. And yeah, I just wanted to share the silver lining of this is we get to connect with each other across states. I've been able to have people across the country, from India, from the UK,
Wow.
you know, join in to some of these meetings. So anyway, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. That's really great. And I think that's one of the silver linings of this experience is sort of the borderlessness of, you know, the virtual world, that we can cross over into other countries and even other states, just other states. So yeah, has anybody else had success with virtual events or failures?
Well, I participated in an event which had people from all over the world. It was hosted by someone in London, in England, and it was it was kind of funny. It was good. It was very, very good. There was one musician who just couldn't get it together. So he was like wandering around and everybody was waiting for him to, it was writers and musicians. So everyone was like waiting for him to get it together. And then somebody else read a very, 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 very long piece. So, you know, like with live readings, you have to be really strict about the boundaries, you know?
Yeah.
But it was fun. And Nancy, I really appreciate what you're doing. It's very uplifting to hear that. And I did the same thing with a Facebook Live reading.
So anyway, oh, Rochelle is here. Hi, Rochelle.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Good, good. I know you're far away. You're not in California, right?
No, I'm in Nashville now, but it's good. It's good to see everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yes, Sally.
I have another question. I've not done this conference virtually before. There's a lot of interaction. There are usually 50 people there. I've never done a Zoom meeting with more than 20 at the most. And I'm wondering if anyone has any insight on how what I might need to do to suggest to the instructors to make it more Zoom friendly. Because I think for 50 people and constant interaction, it might become unmanageable. Like I'm wondering, would it be better just to have them do a presentation rather than this interactive thing? So I'd be happy to hear if anyone has any input.
Well, one of the things that I have heard, this is the biggest Zoom meeting that I've done, so this is the extent of my experience, is that there's a lot of fatigue. It's very fatiguing to be on Zoom for any longer than, I think, an hour, hour and a half at the most. 2 hours, I'm kind of squirmy. So like this meeting, I'm hoping to keep it to an hour. So there's that. People say to take breaks. I've also, you know, to have breaks between sessions. So if you're doing multiple events in a day, you know, have it in shifts. And also I've heard that the breakout rooms are really a useful tool. If you have a large group of 50 people, you can create smaller groups within that larger group. You can send people to a breakout room, like 5 people, and then they can write together. And then, you know, after whatever, 15 minutes, you bring everybody back together or something like that. So that's just what I've heard other people sharing. I don't know what you all have experienced or heard. Please chime in if you.
How do you set up a breakout room? Sorry, Marty. How do you set up a breakout room?
Well, it's a function when you're the host of a Zoom meeting, you have a control that just says, you know, create breakout rooms, and then you can select who goes in what room, or it can be a random selection, just like 5 people per room, or, you know, it's pretty easy. And then the control just allows you to bring everyone back into the larger group. but it does take a little bit of practice. So if you're going to do it, you should probably try to test it out first. Yes, Marcus.
I was going to say, first of all, since so many people were kind of chiming in, shouting out Nancy, shout out to Nancy. She did do an amazing job. And this is kind of piggybacking off of what she did that I learned, which is to do a test run. I know we're all kind of the first time that you're doing this, it's that experiment. But one thing that I loved about her reading is it was almost like a soft opening, like a soft reading. So the one I'm setting up with another friend of mine, really, we just had something in advance between organizers and a few poets just to really test out the audio, to test out the breakout rooms, to just really work out the kinks of things, and then check back in and say, okay, hey, this is what we'll do differently. And then the week later, then you know what you're doing. So my suggestion would be, if you're doing something for the first time, do it for the first time publicly, but don't let it be the first time you've ever done it. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to do something on Zoom, do it a week or so before, 2 weeks before, try it out, get about 5 or 6 people together, say, hey, okay, let's try the breakout rooms 3 and 3. Hey, how does one thing I learned on Nancy's reading is that my Bose headphones, which are the most expensive, sounded the worst. So I had to go to the plugin to actually sound better. And then from that reading, I also learned that I have like a very cavernous space, which gives an echo. And these are the things that people learn in advance. So if they're leading the workshop, you can say, hey, wherever you're sitting, there's an echo, or whatever it is, there's some loud, so they can attend to all those things before the reading. So that would be my suggestion, which is let it be the first time you do it publicly, but don't let it be the first time you do it. And then the last thing I'd say is YouTube. I mean, half the stuff that I'm learning from Zoom is from my little meetings I have with the different teachers that I work with, but also you jump on YouTube and Zoom, Google Zoom, on YouTube, and it will give you different tutorials about how to do different things, because Zoom is in such demand that they're creating content right now to help educate people on how to use it.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
I have a question about people who have done writing workshops. Nancy, maybe you know. When you do a prompt, do you then go dark while people write? That's what I'm assuming. I haven't done one, but
Yeah. So I actually do a screen share. I have a PowerPoint and I have a few different slides. I have a poem to share, and then I have steps for the prompt. And I do my screen share, and then I put everyone on mute. I actually use a little bit of a algorithmically designed meditation music that I play over my speakers. People have said the audio's okay, but not great. They can mute me if they want, but yeah, I don't know what you mean by go dark, but I just I keep the screen share up, and yeah, until we come back together as a group.
Marty, you're muted.
But so you're not, I mean, I really like it, what you're talking about. I like the whole idea of doing that. And it's sort of like when you use projected visuals in a real space, you leave it up there and then people are just writing. But I just wondered what else might be happening on the screen if it wasn't a document or something like that. I haven't shared a document on Zoom yet. I've done it on other platforms. So, but thanks, that's helpful. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It's kind of like what Jamie did when she shared her screen.
Yes.
You can see the little tiny boxes of people on the side, or you can minimize it. It's kind of up to the participant to decide how they want to view it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So speaking of screen sharing, I'm going to screen share again. I want to show you a list of other resources that Poets and Writers has available. Okay, so can everybody see this? Is it showing up? Okay, so this is the first thing on this list. Is something that poets and writers did to help writers in extreme need. We created a COVID-19 relief fund. It happened very quickly. The application window is now closed. We've distributed $107,000 to 107 writers. However, I believe that there's going to be another round of funding. So keep your eyes peeled for when the application window opens up again, if this is something that you think you might qualify for, or if you know somebody in need. It is limited to people who have been funded through our Readings and Workshops program and certain other qualifications. So it's not completely open to all writers everywhere. You do have to have some kind of tie to poets and writers. Because we don't have limitless funds, we needed to kind of get the pool down, the application pool down a little bit, so we wouldn't be totally inundated with applications. So keep your eyes peeled for this. I'm going to be sending this list to you after the meeting, so you'll have this. We also have an article that is put together by our editors, Resources for Writers in the Time of Coronavirus. This is a list of lots and lots of financial resources, other resources that might be helpful to writers during this strange and unusual time. And then, you know, it's always a good time to write and to submit your work. And Poets and Writers has all kinds of resources on our website all the time to encourage you to do that. We have weekly writing prompts called The Time Is Now. You can sign up for those. I think they might increase in frequency. We have inspiring articles like Craft Capsules and Writers Recommend. We have a submission calendar that you can check out every week or every month and see where you can send your work, what deadlines are coming up. You can learn about grants and awards on our blog, and always our databases of lit mags and small presses are there for you to research markets for your work. If you're not listed in our directory of writers, you should go and check out and see if you qualify to be listed. And if you do, I encourage you to apply for a listing. One of the recent benefits of being in the directory is that then you could apply for the COVID-19 relief fund if you needed that kind of support. We have daily news that keeps you up to date on all news creative writers need to know. And of course, I mentioned earlier our literary events calendar. That's a place for you to post your virtual events and other events that you might be doing. And then the last part of this list are just non-poets and writers resources, but resources nonetheless. I know folks are using video conferencing services like Zoom, but also Google Hangouts, BlueJeans, Cisco WebEx. These are just some other services that we have heard of. You can get free ebooks through your public library. There's a wonderful app for your phone called Overdrive, which links you up with libraries across the country, and you can get ebooks delivered straight to your e-reading device through that. It's a wonderful free service. And then lastly, the NEA has published some information about making your virtual events accessible. So you can check out that link also. So those are just some resources I put together to share with you all. Hopefully they'll be of some help, or at least inspirational in some way. So do you have any other questions for me or for each other? All right, great. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for all the work that you're doing in your communities, bringing people together for writing workshops, conferences, providing, you know, outlets and resources to your communities. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you will consider applying for a Readings and Workshops mini grant if you are doing a virtual event. If you have any questions at all about whether your event qualifies, you can contact me. I'm happy to help you out. And thank you for being here. We'll send a roster of the folks who came to the meeting. We'll send you the agenda with the list of resources. And I hope to see you maybe next week at the next meeting where we'll be talking about virtual live readings. And then the last meeting in May is the one on creative writing workshops. So please join us if you can, and be safe, stay home, but go on walks. Thank you so much.